The first time I met my sister's new boyfriend, he didn't even look at me properly. Not at first. He was too busy talking about himself. The dinner was supposed to be simple, just family. My sister had insisted. "You like him," she said earlier that day. "He's ambitious." That word always means something different depending on who's using it. When I arrived, he was already there, sitting comfortably at the table like he belonged. Expensive watch, perfectly styled hair. The kind of confidence that isn't earned yet just practiced. "This is him," my sister said, smiling as she introduced us. He gave me a quick glance. Polite, dismissive. "Nice to meet you," he said, already turning his attention back to his story. I took my seat quietly and listened, because people like him always reveal everything if you give them enough time. Within 10 minutes, I understood exactly who he was. He talked about money constantly, about success, about how most people never make it because they don't think big enough. He said it casually, like he wasn't sitting at a dinner table with actual people he was quietly insulting. "And honestly," he continued, leaning back in his chair, "if you're still stuck in the same place after a few years, that's on you." My sister laughed lightly, encouraging him. I said nothing. I just picked up my glass and took a small sip of water. Then, eventually, he noticed me. "So," he said, finally turning in my direction, "what do you do?" Simple question. Loaded tone. "Corporate," I replied. He smirked. "That's vague." "It's intentional." He chuckled like I had just confirmed something for him. "Let me guess," he said, glancing at my clothes, then mentally checking boxes in his head. "Entry level." I didn't respond, because sometimes silence invites people to say more than they should. And he did. "Nothing wrong with that," he added quickly, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Everyone starts somewhere." My sister shifted slightly in her seat. I could feel her watching me, waiting, but I just smiled faintly. "I'm doing fine," I said. He nodded, the kind of nod that doesn't mean agreement, just dismissal. Dinner continued, and so did he. He talked about his upcoming interview, like it was already a done deal. "Final round," he said proudly. "Big company. Huge opportunity." "Which company?" my sister asked. He said the name. I didn't react. Not outwardly, but inside. Something clicked, because I knew that company very well. He kept going. "They're looking for leadership material," he said. "Not just skills. Presence. Vision." He straightened his posture slightly as he said it, performing the role he believed he already had. "I mean," he added, glancing at me again, "not everyone is cut out for that level." There it was. Clear. Direct. Deliberate. My sister laughed again, a little louder this time. I set my fork down gently. "Sounds like a big opportunity," I said. "It is," he replied. "Life-changing." "I hope it goes well." He smiled, confident, certain. "Oh, it will." Then his attention shifted to my car, because people like him notice things like that. "You drove here?" he asked. "Yes." He leaned slightly toward the window, as if he could see it from the table. "That yours outside?" "It is." He let out a small laugh. "You're still driving that?" My sister tried to interrupt. "Hey." But he continued. "I mean, no offense," he said, though the offense was already delivered. "But if you're serious about success, presentation matters." I looked at him calmly. "Does it?" "Of course it does." "And you think a car defines that?" "It's part of the picture." I nodded slowly. "Interesting." He leaned back again, satisfied, like he had just taught me something valuable. Then he said it, the line that settled everything. "Look, I'm just being honest," he said. "I couldn't live like that. No progress, no growth, just stuck. That's basically a dead end." A dead end. My sister went quiet. The room shifted. And for the first time that evening, I looked at him properly. Not as my sister's boyfriend. Not as a guest at dinner. but as someone who had just made a very specific kind of mistake. You seem very confident, I said. I am, he replied.
Good.
I picked up my glass again. Because I knew something he didn't. Something he couldn't possibly imagine yet. Confidence helps, I added calmly. He smiled. Exactly. The rest of the dinner passed quickly after that. He returned to talking about himself. My sister relaxed again, and I stayed quiet because there was nothing left to say. Not tonight. When I stood up to leave, he walked me to the door. Hey, he said, lowering his voice slightly. No hard feelings, right?
About what?
You know, I can be direct. I noticed. He smiled. You'll understand one day. I held his gaze for a moment. Then I said something simple. I'm sure I will. Outside, the air felt cooler, quieter. I walked to my car. The same car he had laughed at. The same one he used to measure my worth. I got in, started the engine, and sat there for a moment because the truth was, tonight didn't matter. His opinion didn't matter. None of it did, because the only moment that mattered was Monday morning, when he would walk into that final interview, confident, prepared, certain of his future. And then he would see me, sitting across the desk,
Holding his resume.
Monday morning arrived exactly on time. It always does, no matter how unprepared someone might be for what's waiting. I got to the office early, earlier than usual, not because I needed the extra time, but because I wanted the quiet. The building was still waking up, elevators moving slowly, coffee machines humming, assistants setting up for the day. Everything felt normal, routine, controlled, the complete opposite of what was about to happen. By 9:15 a.m., I was sitting in the conference room, clean glass walls, a long table, a folder placed neatly in front of me.
His resume.
I opened it again, even though I had already read it twice. Strong on paper, confident language, carefully chosen words designed to impress. Leadership, vision, growth mindset. I almost smiled. Because sometimes the difference between who someone says they are and who they actually are is just one moment of truth. At 9:28 a.m., my assistant knocked softly. He's here. Of course he was early. People like him always are when they think something important is within reach. Send him in, I said. A few seconds later, the door opened, and there he was,
Perfectly dressed.
confident posture, the same energy from dinner, for exactly 2 seconds, because then he looked up and saw me. Everything changed, not dramatically, not loudly, but visibly. His step slowed, just slightly. His shoulders tightened, just enough. And his expression
Froze.
not confusion, recognition. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I gestured toward the chair across from me. Please, I said calmly, have a seat. He hesitated, just for a second. Then he sat down, carefully, like the room had suddenly become unfamiliar. I closed the folder gently.
Good morning, I said.
Good
Morning, he replied. His voice had lost something.
That easy confidence from dinner. It wasn't gone, but it wasn't in control anymore. I see you've made it to the final stage, I continued. Yes. Congratulations. Thank you. Short answers now. Measured. Careful. I nodded. Then I opened the folder again. Let's talk about leadership, I said. He straightened slightly, back to the script, back to the version of himself he had prepared. I believe leadership is about vision, accountability, and I let him speak. For a minute, 2 minutes, long enough for him to settle into his rhythm. Then I interrupted. Interesting.
He stopped.
I'd like to ask you something more specific, I said. Of course. How do you evaluate people who don't present themselves the way you expect? A pause.
Small.
But real. I evaluate based on performance, he said. Not appearance, Of course not. I leaned back slightly. Not cars either? His eyes flickered. Just for a moment. There it was. Recognition catching up to reality. I focus on results, he added quickly. Good. I closed the folder. Completely. Because the resume didn't matter anymore. Let's try something different, I said. His hands were still on the table, but they weren't as relaxed now. Imagine you're in a room with someone whose success you don't recognize immediately. I continued. He nodded slowly. How do you treat them? With respect. Always?
Yes.
No exceptions.
No.
I held his gaze. Even if you believe they're behind in life?
Silence.
The kind that doesn't need explanation. Because both people in the room already understand what's being referenced. I try to understand their situation, he said carefully. Try. Yes. I nodded. Then I said it. The sentence that ended the interview. Because on Friday night, I said calmly, you didn't try. His face changed completely. No more performance. No more confidence. Just reality. I didn't know, he said quickly. Exactly. I leaned forward slightly. And that's the problem. Silence filled the room. I based my judgment on what I saw, he continued. And what you saw was enough for you to decide who I was. He looked down, then back up. I was wrong. Yes, I said simply. You were. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then he tried one last time. I can do this job. I don't doubt your technical skills. Then, but this role requires something more. I let the word settle. Judgment. He sat back slowly. Understanding. Finally. I'm going to be honest with you, I said. This company doesn't hire people who measure others by surface-level assumptions. He nodded. There was nothing left to argue. No way to undo what had already been done. Because some mistakes don't happen in interviews. They happen long before. I stood up. The interview was over. So that's it, he asked quietly. That's it. He remained seated for a moment longer. Then stood up as well. Slowly.
Carefully.
Like someone walking out of a situation they couldn't control anymore. When he reached the door, he paused. I'm sorry, he said. I believed him, but that didn't change anything. Take care, I replied. The door closed, and just like that,
it was done. No shouting.
No revenge speech.
No dramatic ending.
Just a decision.
Clear.
Final. Professional. Later that evening, my sister called.
You didn't have to do that, she said.
I didn't do anything, I replied. He said you destroyed his chance. I looked out the window. The city moved the same way it always did.
Busy.
Unbothered. I didn't destroy anything, I said calmly. He did that himself. Because in the end, it wasn't about proving a point. It wasn't about getting even. It was about something much simpler. He thought he knew who I was. He was wrong. And by the time he realized it, it was already too late.